Welcome back to the Social Matters podcast. We are three social workers talking about social matters. My name is Fran.
Hi, I'm Nadia.
Hi, and I'm Eugene.
So this is sort of a bit of a belated Happy New Year, isn't it? Because it's our first time in the studio in 2024. So,
But hold on, when is the cut-off point for saying Happy New Year to people? Because like the New Year, when does the New Year stop being happy? That's what I want to know.
well, I think end of Jan. I think end of January is an okay
I
cut-off.
think that's pretty generous. I'd say.
Really?
Yeah. You got to say Happy New Year on the 31st of January.
I say Happy New Year the first time I meet somebody in the New Year. So if I meet them in May, Happy New Year. Why? Because then why don't they get some of my happy? Only the people I meet in January get some of my happy. That's
But
rude.
you can give happy outside of Happy New Year.
Yeah, but I want to give. But then they're still missing something. I want to give everyone the same amount.
Eugene's like, January the 2nd, done. Bring out the Easter eggs. Moving on
No,
to the
not
next
January the
thing.
2nd. I'm in May. I'm still saying Happy New Year.
Oh,
Nigel said January 2nd.
you're
I think maybe like third week of January, and then past that, it's the year, innit? It's not.
Wait, you're scraping the barrel. It's Easter then.
Yeah.
It is Easter. Chill out. But I guess it's January, so we thought we would just do a little bit of a like New Year. Any manifestations, any mottos, any words? We normally do our word.
Yeah, I've been trying to be a little bit less kind of, and I suppose I've been doing it for a few years now. Not this is my resolution and this is exactly what I'm going to do. More of a motto for the year. So there's a couple things. Something about consistency. I'm trying to be consistent.
Can you remember that was my word a few years ago, and by February I'd forgotten what it was. There was zero consistency. So I like that word, but good luck with that.
Yeah,
because
appreciate you. Yeah, no, it is. But I saw this image the other day on social media, and it was like, imagine like you've this 7 circles and they're all filled, and then it just says, this is what people think consistency looks like, and all the circles are all full, but actually this is what consistency looks like, and there's 7 circles, and some are half full, some are a little bit full. Just as long as you're hitting something every single day, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full circle in that 7 days. So I that stage with me, I was like, yeah, even if it's just a little bit that I'm showing up for to do in all things, fitness, in reading, in some of the little bits and pieces that I'm trying to do, just consistency, little and often. That was my
I think there's a pattern in your ones as
Yeah.
well over the years, because I'm like some of that was like connecting with what you've said back.
So
I mean, I'm consistent in my inconsistency. I mean, can that be a thing? Because
We've had this conversation. You said that
Really?
before
I
last
don't-
year.
Really, but like seriously, because I similarly started off like the end of 2023, running every other day and eating well, and it's already sort of waned a bit.
just
but
little babes.
Yeah.
Little and
anyway,
often.
this isn't my own personal therapy session, but yeah, we'll talk about it after. How can I be more
Yeah.
consistent? But that's a good one.
So there's that one,
Yeah.
consistent, and the other one is step out in faith. I want to be a bit more like, yes, step out and do the thing, rather than being held back by fear. So yeah, that's
Love it,
Yeah,
love it, love it, love it. Thank you, Nadia. What about you, Huge?
Yeah, we always talk about this every year around, or whether it's on a podcast or between each other, around not having like a New Year's resolution, more having a way of being, an approach. And I guess I have a couple as well. So one is evolution is the word, because this year I'm going to be celebrating a significant birthday, my 25th.
I know, I'm so excited. Honestly.
I love how you guys haven't even rehearsed your reaction. you just instinct.
Because we knew what was coming. The predictability and the predictability. Like, here we go.
obviously not.
21.
Yeah, it's my 25th birthday. But it's almost like actually, because it's quite a significant birthday, I feel like, okay, I want to evolve, but not evolve in the sense of a natural evolution as like you let the elements cause people to evolve, but be more intentional. Like, how do I want to be healthier? How do I want to be fitter? How do I want to try and achieve my goals? How do I want to try and challenge and push myself? So evolution, evolving as a person, mindset, physically, emotionally, is what I want to try and is the approach I want to try and take. Also, I should say, because last year, I can't remember whether I talked about it on the podcast, but I talked about learning French and doing
Yeah.
Duolingo. I'm on day 336.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going for that
Does that mean
365.
you've done it every day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I missed a few days, but you get a bit of a freeze, so you can do it. But I've been consistent. There you go.
Love
In
that.
So I think I'm fluent in French now.
Come on then, hit us.
Oui, oui.
To be fair though, mate, to be fair, that is really
Yeah,
good.
but I need to go out to Paris or a French-speaking country to really hone it. But I can't be up here and be like I'm a absolute G. Like some days I just do it like 5 to midnight, so I maintain the streak. rather than- But I need to get back into learning it more.
Wow.
But I think it's part of the evolution. The idea of like learning another language is something I've been wanting to do for a while, along with playing an instrument. I'll give that
Tambourine?
No, triangle. I'm grade 5 in triangle. I don't even know what the grades are, so don't care. And I kind of connected with that, and also with a song that we're all a fan of, Little Sims, Point and Kill.
Yes.
And that's not like, for people listening to the song, it's not about going to actually point and kill people, but it's about the nature of the song for her. She's talking about her kind of determination, her drive, her desire to be kind of successful in her lane and look after her family and support her family. And I guess that song resonates with me. So that's kind of like a bit of a mantra, but I'll be rinsing that song this year.
He has. In fact, we were listening and dancing to it this morning, weren't we? So absolute classic.
All fans. What about you?
But I think you are looking good, though. Don't you think he's looking good for 60?
I
Say
mean-
he's gonna
I
be
mean-
60 in July.
That was me leaning back thinking that. I was leaning back taking a
Big
compliment. It does
birthday.
not come for 60.
Oh no, yeah, good. And also, just before I say mine, like, look at us coordinating.
We didn't even plan this.
This was unplanned, but yeah,
really
nice
was.
sort of monochrome vibes going.
Also, I should say, because we were talking before, I'm committing a crime because I'm wearing Adidas socks with Nike trainers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I'm all right with this, but I've been told by a younger person on my football team that like I never do it. So I don't
Sorry.
know. What are your views? Mix the brands.
Yeah, I feel all right with it too, though I get the wanting to be consistent. This word is just showing up so much though. But I get it, but I'm not like offended by mixing.
Yeah, for me, it's about what is clean. So I ain't got no time for matchy. Get something clean, get out of the house.
I love it.
What about you, friend?
Well, mine is actually the same as Nadi's because Nadi, you said it about the step out in faith, and I was like, I'm having that. So that is mine. So yeah, it's kind of 2 for 1 there with Social Matters. But when you said it, I was just like, yes, because it just really resonated of like, just really kind of taking opportunities, not stopping it, as you said, through fear or through our own, like, whether it's kind of self-doubt or just like, oh no, I haven't got time, or whatever the reasons that we kind of put those stops on. So I really like that. So I stole it. So
Yeah.
thank you, babes.
That's all right.
So that, oh yeah.
all right.
Come on. So let's check in with our words,
Yeah,
and I like it, and all sound really kind of hopeful, helpful things to take us into 2024. So today we are going to be talking about unconscious bias, and we're going to be thinking about unconscious bias, what it means, kind of in work, in our lives, how it kind of shows up, the impact of it, and also then kind of what we can do about it, because as always, on this podcast, it's thinking about having our discussions and unpicking it, but then a kind of, carrying on the conversation and what can we do. So I think, as always, it's helpful to kind of maybe start with a bit of a definition or understanding of what we understand to be unconscious bias. So I don't know if one of you wants to start by sharing your kind of definition or understanding.
Yeah, when I was kind of thinking about this episode and looking it up, because I think it's one of those sayings or terms that get bandied around in loads of environments, in workspaces, when thinking about diversity and inclusion, let's do unconscious bias training and stuff like that. But the real understanding of it, I think, varies for different people. So for me, what I wrote down is it being a bias within us that we are unaware of, it being unintended and subtle and based on unconscious thought, and the fact that some of them, with regards to how they play out, some of the biases, unconscious biases, can reveal themselves in some of our actions and in some of our words and how we communicate. So it's that kind of like, for me, the idea that we always lean one way. The scales of our morality, of our views, opinions within us are never balanced. They're always tilting and leaning one way, and that's based on our values, based on our lived experiences, based on how we've been affected by wider society with regards to media, with regards to kind of legislation and things like that. So, and we don't always know them. And I was thinking about it's quite a famous riddle. I don't know if I've said it to you before, but I'll say it now. But if you know it, you know it. But it's something along the lines of a son and a father are driving and they get into a car accident, and they both rush to hospital, and the son needs to be, and they both need to be operated on immediately. And the doctor walks into the room and gets out their tools and starts wants to start the operation, and says, "Oh my God, this is my son." What's the answer to that kind of riddle?
I know it because I've heard you say it before.
Yeah.
But
Do you know it?
No,
Well, think about what the answer is.
don't know.
Yeah, and when I first heard this, I didn't know it. But the answer is the doctor's his mum.
Ah,
So that riddle is helpful when thinking about unconscious bias around gender, because society, the messages we get from society is that doctors are men, surgeons are men, whereas surgeons can be women and things like that. So that riddle, I think, is an example of something within us that will cause us to have a level of bias that we don't know about. And I'm not pretending that I got that right when I first read it.
didn't
I
either.
got it wrong. And I was like, oh, they went back in time. They're in the shadow realm, and they came. I'm like, well, no, Eugene, it's a woman. What's wrong with you and your bias inside? You rude, sexist. What? What? I'll edit that out.
He's off.
I'm gonna beep that out. I'm gonna beep that out. But yeah, that idea of like, there's even no matter how kind of liberal we are or how kind of forward thinking we are, we're gonna be affected by the greater narrative of society in one way or the other.
I think that's it. I understand unconscious bias as exactly that. I think we all have them. They are unconscious, so we don't know about them. But almost before that, because I guess you were helpfully saying about like what informs them. But I think if you think of it in terms of the brain cannot process the amount of information we take in. So it actually comes from something in the brain, like basically helping us process information quickly. And it's a bit more of a primitive bit of the brain where, like, when, you know, back in the day when you're like, do I need to run from this lion? That your brain's like, okay, quick, process, this is danger, this is that is that. Whereas actually now, you know, as we've become more developed and evolved, it can be problematic, because if we process information quickly that's unchecked, it is based on those things in terms of stereotypes, in terms of kind of societal discourses, which then, if acted upon, can be problematic. But I think it comes back, doesn't it, in terms of that brain thing of just like, it's how we process information quickly and sort stuff, but then it's kind of, what all of those things do and what informs them is kind of my understanding.
Yeah. I also didn't get the riddle right straight away, and I was you know, you kind of feel bad. Well, I don't know about you, but I felt bad. I was like, oh my days, like that's so, you know, so bad of me to have kind of thought that. And actually, I think there was something helpful in that exercise, because for me, the term unconscious bias, I'm a bit like, does it? I don't know. I've got a bit of a relationship with it, because I think it almost sort of absolves you of responsibility or like, you know, of or higher level kind of processing and thinking. If you're like, oh, it's my unconscious bias, like it's like a bit excused, but actually if you kind of really sort of put a bit of space between that. So when you know, you told me the answer, oh yeah, that's his mum, I was like, that's his mum. Oh, okay. And then I just really sort of like processed what was my response to that, what informed that, why, you know, the language you used as well, like to describe it would have helped, you know, shape how it sort of landed. But I think that there's something helpful in firstly, I think it's important to sort of become aware of your unconscious biases, start, recognizing what are the moments that you're surprised, and funny, it happened yesterday. I was watching football, and not out of choice, because my husband Robbie is a big football fan, and so I'm subjected to having to watch football. But sometimes I secretly.
I was going to say, so yeah.
I do. But some a guy, like a manager, came on, not one that I've known, and started speaking. And when he started speaking, I was like, whoa, I did not expect that voice or accent to come out of his mouth. And then I was like, but why? Like, what is it about him that I'd made an assumption that he was going to talk or speak in a certain way? And so I think, just that in those moments when you kind of notice yourself being shocked or like, finding yourself surprised, interrogating that, I think is a really kind of helpful way to sort of, challenge the unconscious bias. So that was one thing. I feel like do you want to ask me who it was?
No, I was gonna ask you who it was, but I was like, oh, it's working. Nadia never switched on. Watching for myself. Let me analyze it for a systemic cleanse. Who was it though?
Oh, I don't. He was Italian.
See.
Is that Italian?
You're like, is that Italian?
Is that Italian? Yeah, who's an Italian? I think he was a manager. But I was expecting him to like come out in like a proper Cockney accent.
No,
proper,
is it?
I can't remember the name. I can't remember his name.
Was it in the Liverpool Arsenal game?
No.
Okay, it was a different game.
Yeah.
By the way, repping today.
Yeah.
We lost yesterday.
Soz.
But I hope by the time this comes out, we're back. And we would have just played Crystal Palace and we would have won. Oh my God, I can't believe we won 4-0. Sorry,
Crystal ball. No, do you know what I was thinking about? It was just when the pandemic had started and there was a real kind of unconscious bias played out with that newsreader. Can you remember? I think it was Channel 4 News, and we'd all just kind of moved online, and he was in his home, and it was quite like the visual comedy of the kid flying in, in the walker, and a woman coming in to like remove said child from, or I think there's maybe 2 kids, and it was all kind of played out of like we were suddenly in people's like living room, their study or whatever, and the whole thing was like, oh, his housekeeper, maid, and it was his wife. And that is a real prime example where an assumption had been made on maybe race, ethnicity, etc., about who that person was, and actually it was his wife. And that is a similar example where people had made those quick assumptions based on those biases.
Yeah, and I think the idea of assumptions, I think there's sometimes a sort of an idea that you shouldn't make assumptions, but like you were saying, like our brain sort of we make assumptions, we make snap judgments, and I suppose there's no sort of harm in making assumptions. It's how you act on them or don't act on them, I think, is the important thing. So putting a bit of kind of space between your assumption and your action, just giving it a little bit of thought, can kind of really help.
And I think that's such a good point to help people to think that it's okay to have these sort of conversations, because I think the idea of people's fear about the internal processing coming out, I think paralyzes people to just not do anything about the elephant in the room or their assumptions, and believe that their scales can be balanced and they're not leaning one way or the other. But you're being able to have the language and feeling that it's okay to make an assumption, because that's not solely down to your own values or who you are as a person. It's down to the context that you're in, and context creates meaning. If we're in an environment where we've been told in kind of from early childhood, in our literature, in our theatre, in TV, in like everything, that doctors are surgeons, going back to the 90s of ER with George Clooney. Does anyone remember a female surgeon from that? I didn't really watch it. Yeah. But like even just simple ways of when people played when we were kids and people played doctors and nurses. The nurses were always the little girls when I was growing up, and doctors were always the guys, the boys. And this idea of like, it's important to know that it's okay, like you said, Naz, to make assumptions, talk about that, interrogate that, and then, but just be conscious of how you act on them and how they influence your decisions and your actions,
Yeah.
I'd say.
And I guess as always at Social Matters, we're thinking about, okay, how do some of these things manifest or play out in the workspace? And that is somewhere where we do often see these unconscious biases. So what do either of you think of that? Like what might that look like in a work environment when we apply a sort of unconscious bias lens?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think that something I think that comes up that I don't think people really talk much about is appearance, the grace of appearance or attractiveness.
Yeah.
And how...
Sorry, what'd you say? I'm joking, sorry.
And like how that might kind of, if somebody's not, pulling their weight or, being the standard where they need to be in terms of their work, but they're attractive, like they're probably more likely to get a bly in the work. And so I think it's, actually something about appearance and attractiveness and how that might play out in how you kind of make decisions about whether people are performing well or not.
Yeah.
I think as well, like gender stuff is one. So I think there's been like some research showing that actually, people have an unconscious bias that men work harder than women, and that, are people more likely to recruit a man over a woman, even though the woman's CV might be actually up there and actually much stronger. Are you making assumptions about how hard she works, or if she's gonna, be having a baby, or if she's gonna be, compromised in some way based solely on gender? So I think those are a couple of things I was thinking about.
Yeah. I was also thinking of age as well. I think you get kind of age bias in terms of, again, maybe assumptions made on how kind of efficient or proficient someone's being. If someone was applying for a role, what will you want the kind of 25-year-old over the 60-year-old possibly? I think there are times when those unconscious biases may be played out in terms of how capable somebody is as well in the workplace.
Yeah, and also and kind of connected and thinking about intersectionality, but with regards to how people present and what is viewed as strong and what is viewed as resilient. So I was thinking about unconscious bias around the expression of emotion, and not only emotion in the sense of like kind of fear, tears, worry, anxiety, but also in the sense of joy, kind of energy, laughter. Like emotion at any extreme is kind of seen as maybe an unconscious bias about, okay, maybe this person won't be able to handle certain situations, or this person is too emotional, maybe too emotional to handle the kind of pressures of big decisions or whatever. And how are those kind of biases created? What does society tell us about expressions of historically? What has society told us about the benefits or constraints of an expression of emotion, and kind of thinking about how context and how cultures are created. From my very limited understanding of the chronology of history, thinking about this country, thinking about World War II, thinking about the idea of keep calm, carry on, stiff upper lip. The foundations of our culture today has been built on a generation that has been told or to be resilient because bombs are dropping and the country needs rebuilding. So how does that affect how we view somebody's expression of anxiety or somebody's expression of worry? The unconscious bias of like, okay, if you're anxious or if you're worried or if you're tearful, then can you really be a CEO of a company? Or if you're fun, happy, laughing all the time, are you a serious person? Can you be a CEO? Will people listen to you? Will people respect you? So I think so many things with regards to what we see and what we hear and what we feel from others, I think is influenced by our unconscious bias, and that's how it could present in different workplaces, I would say.
Yeah. And there's different types of bias as well. Have you heard of the kind of horn and the halo effect as well, and those sorts of biases? And again, that is where maybe there's the horn effect or the kind of horn bias where there's something that you maybe have taken a dislike to about someone. So it could be how they dress, how they look, again, based on an assumption, based on a stereotype, based on a bias, that then means you sort of generalize that you then kind of, you don't like that person, maybe based on one thing. Same with the halo effect, where there might be one thing about someone that you like that then they are, you know, suddenly have this halo around them. So I think that can kind of play out in the workplace. Also, affinity bias is something that you might see in the workplace, where you just want to be around people that look similar to you, but then what that means for an inclusive work environment where people have that sense of belonging, if it's just sort of like people in groups. So yeah, I think there are different ways as well it can show up.
I was thinking about the affinity bias in terms of like hot desking, you know, like whether that helps to like disrupt that a bit, or with hot desking, do you generally just tend to go to your same desk, and then like it's the unofficial rule that that's actually your space anyway? But, you know, I think something to challenge that unconscious bias is, you know, a bit off the back of the affinity bias thing, to just try and sit with somebody different that you don't usually sit next to, or that you wouldn't usually kind of associate with in the workplace, just to kind of mix it up a bit and challenge some unconscious biases that you may have. You might learn something new, and it just be a helpful thing for you, the team, the organisation.
Definitely. And it also makes me think about, with regards to learning, and because I think social work has been, and I would assume it's the case for the two of you, has been so great our starting off our career as social workers, when you're faced with families and people and adults and children and colleagues from a whole range of diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, diverse thoughts. So it's almost like our world and our experiences are evolved because we are in those environments where we don't, as humans, not us, but social workers in general, you don't get to choose who's in front of you or who you build a relationship with, because people in social work are very, very kind of diverse backgrounds and diverse experiences. So I think that has been a major contributing factor to the evolution of my knowledge as well. But also with regards to thinking about what people can do in order to challenge and interrogate their unconscious bias. And we talk about education, but education doesn't only have to be through going to read a 300-page book. I think the arts are really important for that. Thinking about music, thinking about films, and thinking about theatre and things like that. It's like, interrogate that. Like, go and look at your, like I looked at my I don't know if we talked about this, but looked at my Spotify Wrapped list for the past, not last year, but the year before, and thinking, okay, all of these are black male rappers. What are you doing, Eugene? Like, diversify your. I was like, I'm getting Little Sims in there next year, but it's like noticing what are the films you're watching, what are the books you're reading, what are the theatre productions you're going to, what's the music you're listening to, and what ideas, if we're thinking about race, if I'm a white person, what ideas of black people do I have, and where's that come from, and interrogating that by going to look at the many black plays that are not about stereotyping black people or things like that. So I think through education, I think through the arts is another way of, I think, bolstering your knowledge and interrogating that unconscious bias.
Nice. I think you both kind of, that was going to be my next question of like, how can we challenge? I think you've moved on to it nicely with the like, how you can invite those conversations and things in work. And it's hard, isn't it? Because I was thinking about the affinity bias back to that point, that like, I guess where that can come from often is around safety, you know, and actually what is it that groups people, you want to be with people that look like you. And we've had a previous conversation about psychological safety, and there's something in that, isn't it? You go into a room and you scan and you're like, where are my people? So I guess it's thinking about like where that comes from, and it's not to kind of criticize the need for that within people and humans, but then how can we create the space to kind of expand on that and invite some of those kind of difference and conversations. And as you said, like thinking about challenging ourselves to broaden our kind of thinking, like are we living in our own little kind of bubble where we don't have kind of difference of thought or friendship or those things? Do you know something that I do, which sounds like a bit bizarre, and maybe it's my own little game that I play? I think step one is like recognizing that we've said that we all do have these unconscious biases, not the kind of like, no, that's not me, I'm a good person, like we all do. But that's not to absolve responsibility, as you said, like we need to do something about it. But sometimes when I'm just walking down the street, really way to start to develop your self-awareness is to check what you're thinking about everybody that passes you.
How?
And they will be, because you'll be thinking that. And it's about like stopping that awareness. It's not like acting on it in those, but I think that is such a good way to understand that we all have them, because we make them all the time.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of have that awareness, interrogate it, like where has that come from? What can I do to kind of, unpick and explore? But that is a way that's really helped me like really think about what they are, because we will all be doing that all the time.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of a way that I've done it, like why did I think that, or why did I move away there, or why was I having that assumption? So that's a way to really tune into those ideas as well.
I like that, because I think just thinking about the development or evolution of your unconscious bias, I think the first step is having an awareness, and then being able to reflect on that awareness. So that exercise that you do when you're walking or cycling, that is almost like a reflective process in order to bolster your knowledge and think about, okay, where does your thoughts come from? And then, and we always talk about being reflexive and self-reflexive and thinking about who am I, what do I bring, how does my experience influence what I see? And then thinking about, okay, then how can you go and do something different? And what you do differently doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, call a meeting in the office and be like, look, I've been on my unconscious bias journey, but just in the little things that, like, I think also is with recruitment and with what people view as being good, and that being connected with how people speak or how people write, and our unconscious biases maybe thinking, okay, why do we think that somebody can only display how good they are through how they speak and how they write? And then you may have to challenge, if you're working in HR, for example, may have to challenge, what's your recruitment process like? How do we make this recruitment and change it a bit more so we can allow people to demonstrate their skills in a slightly different way? Because my unconscious bias is telling me that written, and it's based in this country, you need A to C in English, science and maths in order to get access into loads of places. So unconscious bias is that, okay, education or intelligence is formalized and it's just through how people write or how people speak, but actually intelligence is incredibly diverse, and interrogating that, if, for example, if you were to work in HR, is a good way of challenging.
Yeah,
thoughts.
so important, isn't it? I think for recruitment, and I guess a lot of organisations now are having that kind of blind recruitment and things, because people are making judgments on people's names, depending on how they sound, on kind of visible graces, whether it's kind of race, ethnicity, appearance. So yeah, like what is it that organisations can do to really try to mitigate some of those biases? Well, we're coming towards the end of this conversation, but it's been great to start to think about, like what unconscious bias is, how it might show up, the impact, but then also, how we can mitigate it. And I challenge everybody to go and start playing that game, checking out what our ideas are, and then we can challenge them. As always, I don't know whether you have any kind of takeaway or any kind of final reflections.
Yeah, I guess it's a takeaway it's a thought. Sorry, when I say takeaway, I was just thinking about Chinese. I'm hungry.
Deliver it. I am actually.
I've only had a banana and no, I didn't. I intended on having it. Anyway. But I guess
making up food. I had a banana. You saw me eat a banana.
No, I had one when I left my house.
I was like, that was me.
No, I guess my takeaway is more a reflection, and something that's brought out there is that with any sort of change and development and evolution of self, it's not a destination, it's a continuous journey. So I think for people to hold in mind that, okay, you're not going to get to a point when you're like, okay, now I'm no longer have unconscious bias. I'm fixed. I've done my learning and I've evolved, because if society is constantly changing, if the weather is constantly changing, then we're always going to be influenced. our biases unconsciously are always going to be influenced, developing, evolving. New ones are going to be created because the stimuli in society is a lot. So I think holding in mind that it's not a destination, it's a journey. So you need to continue to work on it. I'd say that would be my takeaway.
Yeah, and off the back of that and linked with your offering, I'm going to do that walking down the road or on the tube and just assess what assumptions I'm making about people.
Yeah, because I think for me is that it starts with self-awareness and thinking about ways that you can increase your self-awareness and then start to be kind of reflexive and do something about it. So food for thought as always, and we'd be interested to kind of hear your views and carry on the conversation. We have been 3 social workers talking about social matters. You can find us on YouTube at Social Matters Podcast. You can find us on X and Instagram at Matters Podcast. As always, let us know your thoughts, reflections, join in the conversation, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Bye.